Hello there, traders. Hope everybody is doing well today. Hope everybody's okay. Afternoon, Vincent. Hope you're doing well, mate. As usual, going to be going over some charts of interest. Really liking the look of dollar CAD at the moment. Like the idea of being short this market. Looking at this kind of breakout of structure right now. Just breaching 135 at the moment. So quite like the idea of looking at a potential dollar CAD move. Obviously, this is in line with the rally that we're seeing in oil as well. And yeah, we're obviously seeing a little bit of dollar downside at the moment, which is something that maybe dollar CAD can capitalize in here on a little bit of a sort of breakout move. So looking really early stages whether we're going to get that continuation. Obviously, we've got the jobs report tomorrow, and there are some forecasts suggesting that it will come in around about the 200k mark. This one's saying 212k. So I think anything 200 and above is still considered fairly good as a jobs number. Obviously, the Fed probably wants to see this come down a little bit more, so sort of 200 less or less, really. They want to see a rise in the unemployment rate, of course, and I think average hourly earnings, they are forecast to rise here from 0.1% to 0.3%. So we've got a big day in terms of jobs data coming up, because we've had an interesting week in terms of data. We had the ISM manufacturing PMIs. They came in at 50.3, which is a little bit of an outlier for the week, and that could obviously have a little bit of a knock-on effect. And we haven't quite seen that in terms of other dollar data that came out. We had JOLTS job openings coming in as forecasted, but we had a little bit of a rise in non-farm employment change. And then ISM services PMI came in at 51.4, which was a little bit of a shock. And then we had Federal Chair Powell speak, and the dollar has fallen. The dollar has sort of moved a little bit more bearish than what I was kind of anticipating. But we did come up into a key structure point. So we were looking to see, did price come up in towards this 104.90 handle, and how would price react around that point? And you can see here, we attempted a little bit of a breakout of it, but price quickly fell back within that level, and we're starting to see a little bit of a downside move in here at the moment. Now we are approaching daily swing lows here, so 104 level. Typically I wouldn't really necessarily do anything around this point, because I would be trying to anticipate whether the market is going to hold this area or whether it's going to sort of breach back to the upside. So one or two things are going to happen around this level, which gives us more information. So you can actually see I've drawn in a trend line here. I'm not the biggest fan of trend lines, but you can use trend lines fairly successfully in terms of looking for continuations of moves. So I like the idea of watching to see how price reacts around this point. We've had a couple of bearish days here. Are we going to see a bearish day going into NFP, where NFP might change things around a little bit? Vincent, what's your take on the majors? Yeah, take on the majors at the moment is looking at where the dollar's going to almost end up before we kind of jump in on anything. I was watching cable, but I didn't see any kind of opportunity there because of where price is at the moment. So we'll go look at every major currency pair as well. I will kick it off with euro dollar in a second. But yeah, you can see nice formation forming here. We've come into this 104 handle now. The question is, how does buyers and sellers react? Do we see some buying pressure coming in, or does the index continue to fall? Okay, now the index is obviously made up of a bunch of, or a basket of currencies against the US dollar. So that's what makes the index. So essentially, if we want to understand what's happening here, we can go and look at the likes of the euro US dollar, which is heavily weighted to the US dollar index. And you can see here, lots of breaking structures. So what was interesting, I went up to the weekly chart, and I was kind of looking to see if price would stretch a little bit lower. So I quite liked the idea of price coming down towards the whole number down here, towards that 1.07, and we came fairly short of that. We came around about 10 to 20 pips away from that level before price reversed. And you know, I like to follow the weekly chart, and you can see that obviously Monday we had a very aggressive downside day, and it just didn't follow through. Tuesday we had that pullback. Wednesday the market rocketed through that level. So I don't really see any reason to be short euro dollar at all. Donato, hello, welcome to the stream. So yeah, don't see any, and I mean it looks obvious to say that, but I don't see any reason to be short euro US dollar right now. We are obviously seeing that dollar pressure being felt across the board, and euro dollar is rising. Now have a look at the 4-hour time frame. Typically this is a time frame I'd look to build up sort of that medium term picture, and I'd look to try and identify key areas of structure that we could work with. Now one of those areas was in and around here. So I can see that price has obviously reacted in here before, reacted here, and we've got low volume above this level. Okay, I'm always trying to think in terms of volumes. Where's that volume being held? Where's that volume being? Where have buyers and sellers been interactive in the past? Okay, so obviously there was some build up of buying and selling through this period. Sellers then won that argument and price continued lower. We saw a retest of that. Sellers again used that as an opportunity to compound their sell opportunities or their sell trades, and the market fell lower. Obviously the rhetoric here has now changed. You know, we've got a period of low volume again, which was driven by news. So usually the market can come and kind of fill these periods of low volume. So essentially I'm looking at one or two things. I'm either looking at price rejections of this low volume area. Okay, so if I was to draw a fixed range volume profile, let's just do it over the whole thing, you'll see that volume picks up at consolidation. So you've got a consolidation there, volume's picked up. A consolidation here, volume picks up. Again, down through here and down through here. What you do have is periods of low volume. So if I just drag this actually over to the current move on price action, you'll see that we have volume being built up down towards this consolidation. But when we get a very large move, you've got periods of low volume where prices moved very, very quickly. There's not really any kind of, with this buy momentum, there's a lack of selling coming in. Okay, so it's just all buyers winning that area there. So the way I kind of look at it is, if the market has moved very quickly through that point, are they going to come and retest this zone again? And how do they feel about that? Do they come back and think this is a good opportunity to add to my longs, or does price come back within the value of that low volume area and try and seek the other side of it? Okay, now we are at a critical point because obviously price has been here in the past. We can see that looking left, like I said, in and around these areas. So how does price react is going to be something that I really look at right now. Do I see a rejection of this and a pullback, or do we see a breach of this area and a continuation? I quite like the idea of looking for a pullback, just because price has moved so aggressively. So, you know, even when we've got this kind of downside move, right, even when we get those, price does pull back. So I'm looking to see, can we actually get that potential move in there and pull back into that price? Sorry, I had an alert going off. I was long on the FTSE, and it's just come into my targets, so I need to delete those alerts. Okay, so the way I would kind of look at this from a trading point of view, I want to see price action. I want to see what happens in here. I don't have the data to tell me what buyers and sellers are doing here at the moment, so I have to look at how price reacts. So if I go down to sort of a 15-minute time frame, I'm seeing at the moment nothing special. Okay, the market is clearly trending higher. We've got the market making higher highs and it's making higher lows. If I was going to attribute this to a short opportunity, I'd be looking for one or two things. I'd be looking for price to not make any higher highs anymore, and I'd be looking for price to make new lows. So in theory right now, what I've got to wait for is a breach of this and then a continuation down. Okay, I can't look for shorts just yet because the market is trending higher. So, you know, if we don't see a breach of that low, then there's nothing for me to do here unless we break higher, because then that kind of opens up the idea of price trying to search for new prices to the upside. So that's what I'm kind of waiting for here on euro dollar. We are at a key level. Obviously, we've witnessed that from the daily chart and the 4-hour time frame. How does price react? That's what I need to figure out here. No point jumping on anything just yet, but we can just wait to see how price does react in here. Daily closing bullish. Obviously, I like the idea of if it's closing bullish, it can continue that momentum. So really speaking, can it pull back? Can it then continue back to the upside there in the short term? Now, I did like cable. Like I said, cable, I liked cable shorts this week. I missed Monday. It was bank holiday for me, so I didn't trade on Monday, and unfortunately that's where my opportunity came, which I wasn't involved with. I did short a couple of times on Tuesday, which I talked about in the live stream. Basically in and around this area here, I took short positions in the market, but it didn't follow through. So I managed to take profits, got stopped out on the second position that I was in, and the market then again rallied. Now, like I said before, look at where this period of low volume is, right? So the market sometimes likes to stay within these periods of low volume. I could probably even extend it down to here. And once it kind of got back within that zone, it didn't really look for anything else. It just moved to the other side and broke through that zone just through there. So again, if I'm thinking about it in terms of volume, where is price in terms of volume? Well, look at the consolidation area. We had huge consolidation in here. Okay, and that's where the market kind of broke back within that value, went and sought the other side of it, and now we're kind of trading back higher. Why I was interested in cable today is because, again, what I would say is a period of low volume is this area here. The market has moved very, very quickly between sort of that 127.60 down to 126.75. So the way I look at that is price going to find value in here again? And are we going to trade within that zone to then look for a move to the other side of it? Or is price going to reject in and around this area and reject that value, stay within the value that's being built essentially down here? Again, we've got low volumes coming in around this zone in here. Okay, so that's what I'm kind of looking at the moment. My trading opportunities are within the low volume areas for cable right now. And I think what I need to wait for is price to reject, come into a zone of value, move to the other side of it, reject, come to a zone of value, move to the other side of it. Okay, so that's what I'm kind of waiting for here on cable. If I look at the daily chart, we'd also kind of flirting with these highs here as well. So anywhere between sort of 126.75 down to 126.70. So that sort of 5 pip zone at the moment is what we're kind of flirting with. And that's what I'm watching. I'm watching how does price react in these areas, and does it give me essentially opportunities to trade between those low volume areas. Hi, John. I hope you're doing well, mate. Thank you for joining the live stream. Guys, let me know what you're trading as well. If there is any kind of markets that you're watching at the moment, let me know. Leave the stream a thumbs up as well, if you wouldn't mind. I'd really appreciate that. If you find any value in the streams as well, please leave it a thumbs up. So that's what I'm kind of watching for there on cable at the moment. Now, like I said, one market that I really quite like the look of at the moment is dollar CAD. You know, we've got oil, which was moving to the upside. I mean, I've taken 10 positions on oil to the upside recently. I'm in another position long at the moment, so I'm looking to see if that can continue higher. You know, there's been a lot of news around oil lately about the fact that The supply of oil's production is being cut. We've got banks basically saying that oil's going to move to $100 a barrel. And that for traders is great. You know, that's information. Okay, that's information that we can take on board that can give us ideas in line with our strategies. So I've been long oil. Like I said, I've had 10 positions long at the moment. I've banked 8 positions, got 2 positions running, and I'm looking to see if that can continue to the upside. So I'll show you that in a little bit. But base case, basically, I'm looking at, is that crude oil price rallying going to help us with a potential position on dollar CAD? Are we going to see dollar CAD potentially move to the downside? Again, eyeing up this weekly chart, I always like to do my analysis on the weekly. Just gives me a little bit more of a bigger picture view of what's going on. And I can see, look, we're trading within a massive trading range here. We've got price trading between sort of 139 range highs down towards the sort of 132s, 131.75. Yeah, Vincent, I'll jump on pound Aussie in a second. I'll have a little look at that. And John took a dollar Swiss long trade this morning. I'll take a look at that as well in a second. And dollar CAD is a really nice market to see. You can see that we've obviously got highs in here around about 135.90 up to that 136 handle. You know, if I was going to put a level on it, I'd probably look at that 136 handle as it's sort of a nice round number there. So I'll be looking for that sort of psychological number to play out. We had a very strong bearish close last week. So I'm looking to see, does that momentum continue to the downside? Now, we've got a lot of lows to break. You know, you've got 134.55, sorry, 134.15 as a weekly sort of low. And you've also got this area down here, 133.54. So lots of different levels that buyers have stepped back in on. Okay, that's the way I look at that, is when you've got that sort of bottom of a wick there and it's very significant, your eye's very drawn to it. All these areas are where buyers would have got involved with the market. So are they going to panic if price starts coming back? Can that then compound those selling opportunities? You know, maybe these buyers that have been involved with the market have reached their point where they think it's good to get out, and that's why we're seeing those long opportunity, those long sort of positions in the market start to switch and start to become sell positions. So I like the idea of potentially looking at dollar CAD short. I always felt that if we stayed below 136, that sellers would probably get a bit more of a foothold in the market. So it's about just kind of setting this up with strategies now. So you can see that the daily is kind of showing that sort of high in here, lower high, low. Is this going to be our new lower low that's forming? So essentially, I'm going to be looking for retracements. And, you know, typically I like to look at sort of my 4-hour time frame. I like to look at the highs and lows and, you know, any kind of consolidation points. I can see a very clear consolidation up here between 135.65 and 135.80. I can see at the moment we've got clear low volume as well between that point, which is between 135.40, 135.63. So for me right now, it's about, here's my area of low volume before we get to high volume. Does price come into this area, get accepted in that area and rally? Or does it come back to this area, fail, and continue to move lower? So I think for me right now, I like the idea of price coming back into that area there. Can we get maybe a sort of retracement back into this point? Maybe form a high, go attack that high again. Can we then reject that high once more? Okay, which will give me a lot more confidence that price is potentially going to move lower at that point. Like I said recently, this low should be targets for current sellers. This low down here as well could be targets for sellers to the downside. So in theory, what we should maybe expect to see is a move down towards this level of support. We then might start to see the retracement form around that level. Okay, so that's what I quite like the look of in terms of dollar CAD, and that's in line with oil. You know, if oil prices continue higher up to sort of $90 or $100, then we should see dollar CAD continue to kind of push low, and we should be looking for CAD longs essentially. John again, please analyze the oil market. Looking for long entries. Yeah, long oil at the moment. We'll go take a look at that in a second. Let's jump to Vincent's pound Aussie. Pound Aussie. Vincent is looking to short pound Aussie at the moment. Shorts look pretty good to me. Let's have a look at the daily chart. Yeah, look, we're breaking out of this area. Okay. And I think this is an area we pointed out, wasn't it? I think we looked at this whole area in here, and I didn't like the fact that, you know, looking for longs at this point didn't make sense. And obviously price has broken down since then. And again, that is just going to be a very, very big area that price is looking to be accepted within. And if we break and breach that point, where's the sort of next area? Well, you've got all this down here. You know, that would be where my eye is drawn to. That, I would say, is just an extended period of low volume. So if you're looking to short this, I would be looking at clear closes below this zone. So I'd want to see a very strong close, and I want to see a follow through of that close. So I'd want to see a secondary day of closing below this area, because if you get a secondary day close, the less likelihood of a kind of a breach back within the zone is likely. Okay, so I want the that by having a secondary close below a zone, basically, is what I'm trying to say there. So if we do get that secondary close below, then the market's more likely to do this. If we don't and we see a move back within the zone, then the market's more likely to go back to the other side. So sorry guys, can you still hear me? I hope my internet's still on. I just had the MetaTrader reboot. I hope it hasn't kicked me or anything. Let me know if you can still hear me. I'll flick on to dollar Swiss for you, John. I quite liked dollar Swiss longs. I like the fact of Swiss weakness in the market. So that's something I'm looking to capitalize on. And yeah, at the moment, it's just not. We've got two currencies that are kind of fighting each other. You've got dollar fighting and Swiss franc fighting each other. So that's why we're kind of getting this position in here. You can see that we're up against this resistance zone. So I liked longs on Tuesday because I like the idea of price kind of moving back up towards this zone. So this was the kind of play I was looking for on Tuesday. We had consolidation. Again, that's where volume gets built up. The market came back, it retested that. Okay, so that would have been where ideally I would have wanted to be long, with targets up at the swing highs again. We've then since kind of breached that and kind of gone to the other side of it. So it's looking a bit choppy here right now in terms of dollar Swiss. Would I want to be long here right now? Probably not. I'd probably be looking for some kind of daily pullback here now, because we've breached that sort of level in there. So if we start to see a bit more of a pullback, you know, 0.89 would be somewhere I'll be happy again, you know, to be a buyer. You know, I like the idea of being long, but it doesn't mean that we're going to get that sort of bullish momentum. If I look at the 4-hour time frame as well, you know, if we start clearing these 4-hour lows, that would be a technical reason to not be involved in the market anymore. But I still like Swiss franc. Like I said, I like Swiss franc against other pairs. I actually really liked CAD Swiss on Tuesday, and I missed out on a beautiful move. So I had an alert set here on my hourly chart down at 66.76, and unfortunately for me, it just happened overnight. You know, midnight, I had the alert go off. Well, the alert went off around about 8 p.m. Just wasn't on the charts at that point. Thought I'd take a look at it in the morning to see if we were hovering around this area, and price has just taken off. So I've had no opportunity to kind of take advantage of that CAD Swiss move, but this would make a lot of sense to me. You know, you've got oil prices moving higher, you've got yeah, so that should obviously help the Canadian dollar. You've got the fact that the Swiss National Bank has cut interest rates. So to me, CAD Swiss long makes a lot of sense. So I'm still trying to look to capitalize on that move. I think we've got opportunities to trade up to 67.40, potentially up to 68.26. You know, if I look at it from a daily perspective, I'd like to eke out a little bit more than that. I'd like to kind of try and get up towards that 6,800 handle. So yeah, just trying to follow the trend here. 4-hour time frame, setting a good example for that. If I just pop my 50 MA on here and then add the hourly to it, you know, any kind of rejections and closes back above the 50 looks pretty good at the minute. So need to bide my time here. Again, we've got a period of low volume that's been built because of the data that dropped this morning from Switzerland. So ideally, I'd want to see price come back within that, travel to the other side, and then look for opportunities. Okay. So, you know, because I like dollar Swiss long, or I like the fact that the Swiss franc was getting weaker, just have a look at those opportunities across the board. You know, dollar Swiss is at an area of resistance at the moment, but CAD Swiss could still continue to push higher. So I think CAD Swiss is definitely something that should be on your watch lists. I also liked Aussie Swiss longs as well. Again, just haven't been able to capitalize on this move. Lack of pullbacks for me. Just, yeah, failed. You can see I had an alert set down here at 58.85. And we just didn't get back to it. Instead, we kind of failed at the high there at 58.94. So, unfortunately for me, I haven't been able to capitalize on any of these moves so far. So, I'll have to wait and see. Let's have a quick look around. Bongo, good afternoon. Hope you're doing well, mate. Euro, dollar, yeah, I'll go check that out. I'm going to check out gold first. Gold upside, I think, is very evident at the moment. I mean, look at that chart. How do you not want to jump on that as being bullish? In a video I did yesterday, we actually covered a lot of seasonal analysis, commitment of trade report analysis, surrounding gold. And I think at the moment there is this sort of parabolic move going on. We've got sort of the conflict going on that's adding further pressure on sort of safe haven assets like gold. There's a strong probability of Trump getting back into presidency in the US. That could add a little bit of stimulus into gold, just from a safe haven point of view, in case you get sort of Trumponomics and rising inflation again. So gold is very much fueled up. And what I found interesting from the commitment of trader report data was the fact that we didn't really see any kind of topping coming soon. And what I mean by that is we didn't really see the commercials selling at an extreme level. That to me tells me that the price of gold hasn't found a top yet. We are starting to have a few pullbacks here, okay? But what I like about this is I actually got long gold yesterday, and I got long gold in and around this area here. If we go to the hourly chart, basically after that sort of pink candle formed, I was long yesterday, target up at the swing high, and we get a very similar setup. You know, the market has come back into previous swing highs. We're starting to see a sort of wick down here. You know, typically what I would look for is some kind of change in cycle patterns. So looking at the 5 minute, you know, you've got that sort of breakout of highs here now, which is looking pretty good. 15-minute time frame. This is where I really like to look at sort of breaks in structure. You know, can I get sort of maybe a break of trend line resistance, or, you know, can price kind of come back down again, form that double bottom, and then push higher? So I like gold longs. I think the only thing I would say about it is maybe trade it at a reduced risk at the moment, because we just don't know when that top's going to come, and it could come at any moment. You know, there could be some kind of data somewhere that drops that sees sort of gold prices fall, and I just think use appropriate risk if you are trading gold at the moment. That's the only thing I would say. But yeah, I like gold longs at the minute. Really like oil longs as well. So let's have a quick flick over to oil. Like I said, there's been loads of banks calling $100 in oil. We've seen cuts in production, which increases demand, which then boosts the price of oil. And I can see oil potentially coming up towards sort of $88 and above. If I look at it from a weekly perspective, very bullish on the week. This sort of zone in here is definitely of interest, sort of that for me. So I'm trying to target that essentially. And to avoid swap charges, I've basically been just buying pullbacks and selling at highs. So if I just let's have a quick look here. So my latest entry from yesterday was here. And again, I just looked for price to make a new high and I banked out of that position. You can see I've got loads of analysis on here because I've just been basically buying in. And this was where we spoke about it on Tuesday. Price was pulling back. I already had a long position involved in the market. But as price was kind of moving lower, I got to kind of average into that. And that's what I've been doing basically. So looking at oil again, as long as price continues to make higher lows, I'm happy. So at the moment, this is where I'm looking to kind of add in at this area here. I like buying from lows, selling at highs. So if we can see $86, I'd happily take some money off the table, trying to scale up basically towards that $88 level at the moment. I think if we can move it over a little bit, the other sort of area of interest is down towards 84.50. So either of these kind of zones for me right now is good for long oil. And again, what markets are moving at the moment? It's gold, it's oil. That to me makes sense to be watching those markets. So yeah, dollar CAD, still dollar CAD. Yeah, so euro dollar. Yeah, this is what I was kind of talking about earlier, Bongo. I like the idea of one or two things happening. We're at a level of resistance at the moment, but you can see we've had an initial break of that zone. So that could invite further buying pressure up towards the next zone of resistance. Ideally, I'd want to pull back because if I want to be long in this market, I don't want to be long here. I want to be long down towards this zone down through here. So I am trying to see if price can pull back towards 1.0825. And I think we're going to see one or two things happen here, either a rejection of low volume or a re-interest of that zone in there. Maybe something like that can happen, a couple of rejections. But for me, on a sort of trading aspect, how would I be a buyer of this right now? I don't really see the opportunity there because we're at resistance on a higher time frame, and that's kind of my number one rule. If I'm at a higher time frame resistance, I'm not necessarily touching that until I get some more information in price action. So we'll have to wait and see here. We will have to wait and see, I think, see how the dollar plays out essentially. Like I said, we are at a key area 104 at the moment. We're just dipping below that level, so if it can continue to the downside. So a little look at the 4-hour time frame. Yeah, lots of, there's a good potential that dollar just falls below this zone, heads towards the 103s or whatnot. So that's what we're going to have to keep an eye on. How does the market value this zone right now? Does it hold here and do we get a close back above, or does it break and does it close lower? I think that would really give us some more information on what could potentially happen next on our dollar pairs. But any kind of dollar weakness, I think that will be felt. I think gold will benefit off the back of that massively. Let's have a quick look at the stock markets. I know the stock markets have sort of rebounded a little bit. Like I said, I was long on the FTSE, basically long where this zone is. Again, the market formed some lows around 79.10. In and around that area is where I decided to take positions. So it's actually 79.40 I got involved because of a head and shoulders pattern. So people say that head and shoulders patterns don't work, but I took a head and shoulders move and basically actually bought the break here. Let me show you that. I actually bought FTSE twice recently. So I'll just bring down my trading terminal. And this was that head and shoulders break. I could have got involved at the sort of level, okay? But, you know, the market's not, you know, perfect, you know, and you don't have to be perfect to get the value out of it. You've just got to be committed to your bias and understand when your bias isn't in play anymore, understand when it is in play. So, you know, what's the difference here? Well, if we look at this, you know, this is that zone of interest. Again, volume zone, lots of lows being developed at that point. Price came into that, didn't just buy in here for the sake of it, you know, because price could have easily fell through that zone. I'll just remove this a second. Instead of waiting to see how price action developed, you know, that's my other long over here. So yeah, essentially the market made head and shoulders, it breached. I bought the breakout, so basically the close above that trend line break is what I bought. Could have waited for the retest, but I didn't. Ended up exiting positions just before or after price was again kind of rejecting these lows. So what I was looking at is, was price going to hold and break above that into that? Essentially my full target was like this 8,000 area, but I thought that's a good place to take profits. I'll just take profits off the table at that point. There's no point holding on through that. Very similar over here as well. Market came in. What did it do? It breached essentially trend line resistance there. And that's how I got involved with that. And I just held, you know, for me, my bias was if it can hold above this zone, I'm still want to be long in the market. If it breached below that zone, that's when I'm wrong. That's when my bias is gone. So that's what I did on the FTSE trade. Starting to see a little bit of downside in the FTSE at the moment, but we're back at this major swing high again. So nothing to do for us just there. Questions, Kyle. So what looks the closest to a potential trade? I'm just really learning right about now. For me, the closest to a potential trade is probably oil. Looking at the 4-hour time frame. So these are my two zones of interest right now. Okay. And there's two ways you can go about trading this. So like I said, I like to see sort of structure breaks. So at the moment, I can see that, you know, we've got the hourly here. It's kind of formed a wick low, which is positive in terms of there's a bit of buying coming back in. I could either see a break of trend line, okay, which would help me sort of average in here, or just go and have a little look at the lower time frame. Now, if I look at the 15-minute time frame, we've got buying and selling going on, okay, because the market has formed a bit of a base of high there, formed a bit of a base of low here. So if I want to be a buyer of this market, yes, could I start buying at lows? Absolutely, it is the best place to technically buy, because if I'm a seller, that's where I'm getting out, and if I'm a buyer, that's where I'm getting in, because it's highs and lows. So that is an area of interest. I like to wait for a little bit more confirmation. So that means for me, what I'm going to be waiting for is price to breach this consolidation zone, come back into it, and then reject it. So I've got an idea that price is at least moving in line with my bias. I don't mind giving back a few, you know, points to get involved with a market, as long as it kind of gives me that confirmation. So the one that's closest for entry to me is oil, and that's what I'm kind of watching here, this kind of zone here. And if it breaches that zone, I've got another zone of interest, which is down towards these lows. If it breaches that one, then I've got to rethink the sort of bias here in the short term. You know, maybe price is coming a little bit lower. Maybe we're coming back towards sort of $84. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's go flip back up to the dollar because, yeah, that's what I'm kind of eyeing at right now. Cable looking to break a little bit higher at the moment. You know, again, low volume zones for me are also a good point of interest. When the market has moved quickly over a short period of time, you know, that means there is a lack of participation by one side of the market. And I feel that if price goes into that value again, it could go and seek the other side. So this is very much, I think, an opportunity as well. So if we get a close back within sort of this 126.80, then the market may want to go and search within this value. So that may look like a move into the zone, a retest, and a continuation in that zone as well. So cable and oil look the two sort of best from what I can see at the moment. All right, guys. Any other questions, guys? Let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to leave it there. So just to kind of recap what we talked about, dollar's obviously falling at the moment. We do have NFP tomorrow, so the non-farm payroll reports. That's going to be a very big event. I think if you're in the market around that, you might want to reduce your positions or kind of at least manage your positions. So maybe take some money off the table, bring your stops to break even so you don't, you know, give any money back at the end of the week. But yeah, I think at the moment we've got some good momentum on dollar at the minute, and that momentum might continue. Now, if the dollar continues to weaken towards NFP, then it might just tell you what's about to happen at NFP. So I think, you know, at the end of the day, your job as a trader is not necessarily to be in the markets all the time. It's to trade when you are the most sort of clear on your objective at that time, you know, or where the market is most clear for you to interpret a potential opportunity. It's not about trying to buy and sell every move. That doesn't work. You know, you've got to wait for those key opportunity moments to come to you, and then assess what happens at that point. If it meets all your criteria, then that's how you get involved with the market, and that's how you're able to manage risk comfortably. Bongo, so is it a waiting game at the moment? No real trades? Yeah, I think a big waiting game. Like I said, the only ones that I like are oil and pound. That's the only ones I can say that jump out at me at the moment for kind of opportunities right now. And oil, I think, is a good one because you've got that sort of fundamental backing. You know, if we look at bond yields at the moment, usually bond yields can tell you what's happening in the sort of FX space when it comes to the US dollar. You can see that we've come into a little bit of a top here, and bond yields are starting to move lower again. That can drag the dollar with it. So if bond yields continue to fall, then, you know, that's going to be something to be aware of for continuations on that dollar weakness as well. So okay then, guys, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you to everybody that joined me today. Really appreciate all your comments and questions. Just like to give you all a shout out. So Vincent, Donato, John, thank you for commenting. Bongo and Kyle, thank you for your questions as well. I really appreciate that. If you did learn something today and you did find some value in the stream, please leave the stream a thumbs up. I would really, really appreciate that. And hopefully you have a great rest of your trading week. Be careful. NFP tomorrow, big data. The Fed are going to be watching that very, very closely, the labour market. So keep your eye on that. And I will catch you next week on Tuesday. Have a great weekend as well. And if you do have any questions, feel free to join the VIP trading room. You can drop me a DM there. And yeah, I will speak to you soon. Cheers, guys.